Hey y'all, I'm Heather Scott, the North Carolina Zoo's veterinary hospital manager, and I'm here to answer your questions about my position, working at the zoo, and my travels to the Mariana Islands to translocate birds. So let's get started. The zoo has over 1,500 animals made up of about 300 different species. The best part about my position is that I get to work with all of those different animals whenever they need attention. There isn't much common about the zoo field, but one of the things we probably see most often are lacerations or cuts from our animals interacting with each other and their large natural habitats. No day is ever the same. It really depends on what's happening out in the park. Some days we might see one or two big cases, some days we might not see any animals at all, and then other days it feels like everything needs attention at the exact same moment. Education, experience, and the willingness to move, maybe even across the country, are some of the biggest parts of getting a zoo job. Volunteering if you're able to, and really just getting a very broad experience base is going to help you the most. Some days I'm not entirely sure how I managed to get the hospital manager position, but in all honesty, it will depend on what the zoo is looking for, what their team dynamics are, and what your knowledge and experience base is. There are a lot of factors that go into anesthetizing an animal, but this is where a lot of our education and experience comes in. We learned a lot in school about your dogs, cats, horses, and cattle, and basically what they need, and then we extrapolate that to our zoo animals. We learn a lot from our colleagues at other zoos, so if I'm anesthetizing an animal that I've never worked with before, I might research scientific literature, our medical records, to see what has worked and what hasn't for other people. For each individual animal, there are a lot of factors to take into account. Its age, health status, and the reason for it being put under anesthesia. So we learn a lot about our animals, the different drugs that we're using, and what's necessary for each procedure. Elephants by far are my favorite. They're giant, gray, and wrinkly, and they can pick things up with their face. How cool is that? Probably our Roadrunner. I grew up watching cartoons, and they look nothing like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. I was actually pretty disappointed, but turns out they're pretty cool animals to work with. The most rewarding part of my job is by far when we fix the animal that we didn't think was going to make it. When we can heal something, make an animal feel better, and return them to their family group. I don't know if it's the strangest thing I've ever seen, but it was by far one of the coolest. Removing the cataracts from both eyes on our bull elephant, Cesar. That was pretty cool and a giant team effort. Personally, I never really had a lot of issue with bodily fluids, so I didn't have a lot to get over. However, vomit is one thing that I still struggle with to this day. We definitely deal with nutrition. It makes a huge impact on an animal's health and well-being. I personally don't oversee the nutrition for our zoo. We have a commissary manager for that, and one of our veterinarians focuses on that aspect of the animal health department. Definitely the wild thing. It's a really challenging pose, but it's a wonderful front body stretch, a back bend, and it's a lot of fun. Depends on the size of the bird, but they definitely can be more fragile than, say, you would expect from a mammal. Some of that's just their anatomy and how their wings are connected to their bodies. Overall, we're very careful when we handle birds of any size just to make sure that they're safe. The rufous fantail, one of the birds that I've worked with in the Mariana Islands, basically feels like a ping pong ball with wings when you hold it in your hand. So while I'm worried about hurting them, it's not actually breaking their bones, it's just kind of squishing them. I can only assume that being a veterinarian is enjoyable because they get to work with awesome technicians like me. Don't let them tell you any different. Technicians rule the world, and we run the hospitals. After traveling 36 hours, spending 12-hour days, misnetting, making sure birds are healthy, and translocating them to safe islands in the Marianas, I'll be honest, Dustin, the trip is definitely about the beaches. 2 is his preferred number. 3 is pretty easy. I've seen 6 at a time, but that was only for a tiny second. 4 is generally the max when he has free choice. As long as he has 1 ball though, he's a pretty happy camper. In case you haven't picked up on the thread running through all of my answers, the favorite part of my job is the variety. Every day is different, every animal encounter is different, and they certainly keep me on my toes. It's a fun job because no day is ever the same. Thank you so much for submitting all of your questions. I'm sorry if I missed anybody, but it's been a lot of fun answering them. Everyone have a great day, and thanks for joining us this morning.